Only one funeral has ever been held on the grounds of the old Montana State Prison in Deer Lodge. It brought prisoners, guards, and dignitaries. They came to say goodbye to an inmate called Turkey Pete. We're revisiting the story in this classic Montana moment. Kevin Mackey takes us there.
We are inside the 1912 cell house, and in this vicinity is where Turkey Pete would have been housed from 1918 until 1967 after his death.
Turkey Pete's real name was Paul Eitner. Eitner was a German immigrant who was living in a boarding house in Miles City in 1918. Living there also was a woman he liked.
He really liked her. But there was also a traveling salesman that lived in that boarding house, and he also liked the young lady. And the two men got in a fight down in the kitchen one night.
He went and got his .38 revolver. He walked to the kitchen and he shot that gentleman.
Joseph Nugent died 3 days later. Paul Eitner was convicted of first-degree murder and began serving a life sentence of 40 years. He was already 40 years old. Cell number 1 became his home.
Now this cell is about 6 feet by 8 feet. And these pictures behind me are of Turkey Pete when he came to the prison in 1918 and towards his later years.
So how did Paul Eitner get the name Turkey Pete? Well, he was a model inmate.
And so he was entrusted with taking care of the prison flock of turkeys.
One day, a fellow came by in his truck and told Eitner how much he liked the birds.
And Pete sold him all the birds for 25 cents apiece.
Eitner gave the money from the turkey sale to the prison, but staff saw it as an early sign the trustee was losing touch.
That was Pete's last day outside of the prison walls. From then on, Pete was kept inside the prison.
So this would have been Turkey Pete's home for 49 years.
Paul Eitner resided alone in number 1, in a block that was 4 tiers high with 200 cells, 2 bunks apiece. He never had a roommate. Inmates would come and go, but Turkey Pete stayed. Through the years, he slipped deeper and deeper into his own world.
His understanding of life was this place was his. He owned this prison.
He wrote Eitner Enterprises checks printed by inmates in the prison shop. He gave away fortunes.
Sending $12.5 billion to Brazil when the coffee crop failed.
He wrote checks to families for groceries and utilities and paid the guards' salaries.
And he would send the president a check for the entire defense budget.
He made sure prison staff had everything it needed.
15 truckloads of soda pop for the prison.
The prison board had long decided that Paul Eitner couldn't adjust to the outside world. After he served his 40-year sentence, he really had nowhere to go.
And no one, I think, had the heart to throw him out at that point. And the head of corrections was okay with it.
He came and went as he pleased. He slept on the couch outside the deputy warden's office at night and read the warden's paper in the morning.
He had a relationship, a friendship with the wardens that were here and the guards that were here.
Sandy says one warden told Pete to stop sleeping on his couch and to quit reading his newspaper.
And so Pete folds the paper back up and he smooths it all down and hands it to him, and then he bangs on the desk and he says, "I hired you and I damn well can fire you."
Montana State Prison had its own band. Turkey Pete became its mascot. He managed the prison's boxing team. The boxers called him Champ.
It eases up the tension in a prison to have a distraction, and he was a very long-lasting one.
His was the only funeral ever held inside prison walls. Turkey Pete was a convicted murderer, but in a life sentence paying the price for his crime, he made friends.
The guards purchased his tombstone, and they held his funeral inside the Clark Theater.
It brought more than 600 people.
From the lieutenant governor, the Department of Corrections head, and all of the inmates that could pack into the Clark Theater were there.
After his death, cell number 1 was retired. Most prisoners' graves from years ago are marked only by rocks etched with their inmate numbers. Numbers fading or gone. No names. Paul Eitner had many names. Kevin Mackey, NBC, Montana. If you want to watch this story again, or if you missed one of my previous stories, you can watch every Montana moment in a special segment on our website at nbcmontana.com.